"The heart will break, but broken live on," said the British poet Lord Byron when referring to the aches that a love of days gone by can inflict. And while certainly all of us have struggled through dark periods of our life, where the weight of a broken heart has surely made us think that things wouldn't get better, very few know of the potentially deadly effects a broken heart can have on the human body. Hello everybody, my name is DocFeedy and welcome back to the channel. I like to look at strange and unsettling true fates that people such as you and I have suffered through, and since I'm a medical doctor, I have a special inclination to discuss fascinating cases with a medical touch that have befallen the human body, but that will not be my only focus. So if you like the content you're about to watch, consider smashing the like button or subscribing to see more content such as this. Thank you for watching, and let's get ourselves into this case. Shannon Dingle did not have an easy life. By her own account, the now 40-year-old who was born in Florida suffered abuse as a child, at the hand of family members and strangers alike, and ended up pregnant just at the age of 12, along with suffering from PTSD from a very young age. Despite this, she attended and graduated from university with a Bachelor's of Art in Communication Studies, as well as a Master's of Art in Education, and went on to become a high school teacher, as well as to work for the non-profit organization Teach for America. She proclaims herself as a devout Christian, having also worked in Christian nonprofits, and is also a political activist and disability advocate, among other things, writing about her personal experiences on her personal blog, as well as publishing pieces as a freelance writer in well-known journals such as The Washington Post, Business Insider, and USA Today. With this, she has not only gained notoriety, but has also become somewhat of a controversial figure in the lead-up to the 2016 US American presidential elections, given her stances on abortion, disability, presidential candidates, and progressive topics. However, this video is not supposed to be a review of her writings, nor her personal or political opinions, but about the events that she and her family went through during the year of 2019. In 2019, Shannon was married to her husband, Lee, 37 at the time. They met in college at the University of Carolina at Chapel Hill through a campus ministry. Shannon was 18 at the time, and Lee was 19, and studying to be a civil engineer. They both soon married young, and as a result, they ended up having a large family of 6 children, consisting of 2 biological children and the couple adopting 4 more, 3 of which suffer from chronic diseases such as HIV, cerebral palsy, epilepsy, and autism. Shannon went on to become, as previously mentioned, an activist and writer, while Lee worked as a rescue engineer. Ultimately, after 15 years of being a loyal employee, he became the president of Atlas Engineering in Raleigh, North Carolina, a company whose job was to assess the state of older, more dilapidated buildings and to evaluate and initiate renovations. On July 18, 2019, the entire family was on vacation. This was just 2 weeks after Lee becoming the president of Atlas Engineering, after an unanimous vote in his favor. So, it's not hard to imagine that spirits were high. The family went to Oak Island, a seaside town at the very eastern edge of North Carolina, bordering the Atlantic Ocean. It seemed to be an ordinary hot summer day when Lee, along with 3 of his children, entered the water. There, everything seemed to be fine at first, with Lee playing with his children as usual. However, the family's vacation trip would take an unexpected turn when, in a freak accident, a wave hit the father of 6 so hard and in such a way that it forced him to the ground, crashing to the sand below, that it reportedly ended up breaking his neck in 3 pieces and caused his throat to swell, leading to a lack of oxygen supply through his airways and brain. Just 2 weeks after his life-changing rise to the top of his company, in a moment of supposed bliss with his wife and children, tragedy struck. Now, with neck injuries, several things must be mentioned. Other than possible airway swelling and injuries to bone and cartilage that can severely inhibit oxygen supply after a neck injury, the other danger is from lesion of the phrenical nerve, which is directly innervated from spinal cord sections C3 to C5 bilaterally and is vulnerable in traumatic neck injury, with lesions possibly resulting in diaphragm paralysis and respiratory failure. It is estimated that in states of total lack of oxygen, the brain generally sustains permanent damage after 3 to 5 minutes, with certain regions such as the hippocampus and the cerebellum being especially sensitive This meant that Lee Dingle was on a race against time, and after seeing their father hitting his head, Lee's kids immediately rushed to their mother to alert her, and chaos ensued. In the case of Lee, despite the intervention of his kids, wife, as well as others as first responders and him being subsequently rushed to the hospital, he suffered significant brain damage due to the lack of oxygen, including brain swelling. He was eventually pronounced brain dead without any residual brainstem activity, which meant he was unable to survive without mechanical assistance. At last, Shannon was faced with the doctor telling her this devastating news, that she was soon to be a widow and a single mother of 6. She was alone, next to her dying husband, the first to receive the news, while her children were in the same beach house they had went to before, as a united family, for a simple vacation that eventually changed their entire lives. But, despite this tragic turn of events, Shannon's life would get even worse after her telling her children about their father's death and having to coach them through this difficult time. Soon, she would find out that she was pregnant. This was not only devastating from a personal perspective, but a difficult choice for her as well. She wanted to abort the baby, being overwhelmed with the emotional and financial burden of raising a child under such circumstances, knowing she could not do it without Lee. But she was also a devout Christian and a pro-life advocate at the time. She self-reportedly went into a spiral of shame, deliberated, grieved. But before she could schedule the procedure, the choice, luckily for her or not, was taken from her, as she suffered a miscarriage. Now, according to a piece in the Business Insider written by Shannon herself, who does, from her own admission, suffer from several autoimmune, orthopedic, and psychiatric conditions, never had heart issues before all of this. But after the sudden loss of her husband, she would not only learn that she was pregnant, she would soon experience stabbing pains that were more than just short panic attacks, and felt more like full-on heart attacks, and soon she needed to be monitored. What Shannon was suffering through was a condition known as Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, or broken heart syndrome. Broken heart syndrome, also known as stress cardiomyopathy, or Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, is, as the name implies, an acute, temporary dysfunction of the heart muscle, most commonly associated with physical or emotional stress. Physical stressors can be, for example, an overbearing amount of physical activity, as well as taxing organic illnesses such as infections, whereas emotional stressors can be accidents, natural disasters, or the sudden loss of a loved one, such as in this case. And while the exact mechanisms behind it are yet not fully clear, fight or flight hormones including adrenaline and noradrenaline seem to be involved in the morphological transformation of the heart muscle. The end result is a dysfunction of the left ventricle, one of the heart's 4 chambers, its largest one as a matter of fact, which is responsible for pumping the freshly oxygen-enriched blood into the aorta, and thus into every major organ other than the lungs. This dysfunction can be seen in echocardiography, or a coronary angiogram, with the otherwise narrow end of the left ventricle being blown up like a balloon, akin to an octopus trap, or takotsubo in Japanese, from which its name derives. This can lead to a reduction of heart output force and to symptoms akin to a fully blown heart attack and congestive heart disease, mimicking 1 to 2% of all STEMI myocardial infarctions seen in clinical practice. In over 90% of cases, this condition affects older women after the menopause, but can also affect younger people like Shannon. ECG anomalies that mimic ST elevation heart attacks are present in 40 to 50% of cases, but blood work mostly indicates a lesser elevation of troponin than an ST elevation infarction, which is the most sensitive marker of myocardial infarction we have to date. Regardless, a coronary angiogram is necessary to rule out infarction of coronary arteries, as Takotsubo cardiomyopathy can often not be differentiated from quote-unquote textbook myocardial infarction. It is only after excluding obstructions in the coronaries, observing dysfunctional movement of the heart muscle, looking at the ECG and having a timely association with a physical or emotional stressor event, that the diagnosis of broken heart syndrome can be made. Now, the complication rate of this disease is fairly high at 50%, and monitoring, such as in the case of Shannon, is necessary, as broken heart syndrome can lead to heart output failure, low blood pressure, arrhythmia, and even tearing of the heart muscle. While its medical therapy mostly resembles the therapy of quote-unquote common congestive heart failure, rare cases might necessitate intensive care and even mechanical supportive therapy. Despite its dangerous onset and high complication rate, prognosis is fairly good, with broken heart syndrome being a mostly temporary issue. Most patients have a favorable outcome with spontaneous and total symptom remission in days to weeks, given they go through the acute phase and have the complications well managed. Luckily for Shannon, this was the case. Her cardiac symptoms seemingly got better after a few weeks, and she managed to guide her children emotionally through this difficult time without them losing another parent. Simultaneously, a GoFundMe campaign managed to raise more than $300,000 launched by her friends after her husband's death, which, according to news sources, has allowed her to keep her family on health insurance, even during the ensuing pandemic and her own self-admitted health issues. Today, she still lives with her 6 children and has published a book called Living Brave, recounting her thoughts and feelings from the time after Lee's death. And that was that. Thank you all for watching. I hope you've managed to get something from this video. Life is precious, and what this case has shown me personally is not only the impact that emotional stress can have on the human body, but how precious and fleeting life itself is, and how from one moment to another, the people you actually care about the most can disappear forever. So I hope that next time you are around your close ones, that you find a singular moment to lean back and just enjoy the ephemeral nature of life and the beauty that lies within it. For those of you who have noticed that my voice sounds off, you're correct. I've had a cold for the last 2 days, but nothing too wild. It's not the coof, and it's gotten better already, so that I can return to work tomorrow, which I'm actually really looking forward to. And on that positive note, I'll leave you be. And until next time, take care of yourself and stay healthy.